23.3. Like take up. Let's see if we can do what we can do with co-ops tonight.
Is that me?
That is Fayez and Commissioner Kazi and Commissioner Hart. Who's taking the lead on that?
Okay. So we've heard a lot of testimony from.
Before you do, is there opposition to this? Commissioner McGraw. All right, continue.
So we heard a lot of testimony from cooperative housing folks, and this is a housing system that works, and so I want to take obstacles away from it, and have it be a permitted use in R1, R2B through E, R3B through C, just about in every zone, and you can read the language in there.
Okay. In opposition, Commissioner McGraw.
I think co-ops are wonderful, but they're basically just people living in buildings like everybody else. So my question is, I've seen that they want to have greatly expanded occupancy limits. Are we talking about that at this point?
Is occupancy
My
limits?
motion is only to allow the use at this point.
Okay.
Well, I don't understand how that relates then.
So it's allowing the use, and the occupancy is a separate issue.
But is the occupancy part of the use? Isn't the occupancy part of the definition of that use? Maybe staff can answer that.
Is that one? I mean, it's not your motion, I understand, but
Occupancy is different for co-op, so it should be considered. If it's a
Yeah.
So can I make a motion
Incorporated.
to table?
is there a second to table this? Seconded by Commissioner Knuckles. All right, all those in favor of tabling this to
You
our
want me to
next
tell you where?
to our next meeting? And
Yeah, it would be in the definition of co-ops because that would right now limit zones that can accommodate. So I don't think it's worth approving this because by definition you can't do it. So we need to look at the definition.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling this till our next meeting, please say aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. All right. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. All right. This is staying in play for the moment. All right. We've had one in favor, one against. Commissioner Anderson, speak in favor.
I see Mr. Ryan Neal back there. Nobody fights harder for co-ops than him. Ryan, will you come down for a quick second? So, I mean, they're unbelievable.
Please.
Yeah, you need a second too.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Kazi. All right, thank you.
Wow, I have 10 seconds. You're popular, Ryan. So I know how incredibly affordable they are and a lot of good things, but Ryan, could you speak to these for 2 minutes? Why should we support these?
Yeah, so in my studies, the co-op housing typically has rents at 40 to 70% of comparable housing. They have parking rates that are much lower. So even if you had a co-op with only 4, 5, 6 people in it, the maximum occupancy allowed, you would still expect to see lower rates in rent and parking because the roommates are actively working together. Than a random roommate arrangement that you might have found on Craigslist.
Great, thank you.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it appropriate to call someone from the audience to make a presentation? It does not say this in our guidelines.
In the rules, it says we can call on anybody from the audience. It doesn't.
To answer a question.
I
There
asked
was
him a
no
question.
question.
His question was, what's great about housing co-ops?
It was a broad. Okay.
Can I?
No,
I'd like to.
hold on. Good question. Point for all of us to remember is that when we are calling somebody from the audience per these rules, let's make sure it is direction oriented. You had a question. It was pretty broad. Let's be careful with that and just make sure we're getting information out of it. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So, I know that he lives in one, owns one, runs, or part owner. No, I'm good. He runs one. I mean, I just know that he's an expert witness on this. And so I've reached out to a couple of habitats around the country, and I know New York City is actually moving to co-op models. They're not even doing ownership or restricted covenants or community land trusts. They're doing straight up co-ops because that's the best tool that they have. And with this market getting as competitive as it is, I mean, the business model is changing. This is nonprofit housing owned by the folks who live there. It's pretty phenomenal, and I hope that we can find great ways to support it.
Speaker in opposition, Commissioner White.
I'd like to divide the question.
Okay?
I'd like to divide it out so that staff's recommendation of including it in MU3B and MU4 is called separately from the R zones.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion to divide it by Commissioner Shea? All those in favor of dividing this into two parts, the MU3B and MU4 as one part and then R as the other, please say aye. On 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Please get your hands up, guys. You're making it hard sometimes. What's that? Yeah, and the nays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstaining? All right. So are we taking up the R first or the MU3B, MU4?
MU3B and MU4.
Okay. MU3B, MU4. Motion maker, are you okay with taking that first?
Yes.
Okay. So at this point, we've had 2 people in favor and 2 people against. One more in favor. Opposed? Commissioner Shaw.
Right now, R2 zones allow for 2 units.
We're doing MU3B and MU4.
Oh, sorry. Nope. My bad.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone want to speak in opposition to 3B and MU4? Okay. With that being said, I'll call to a vote. All those in favor of item 23.3 as written by Commissioners Kazi and Hart to allow co-op housing in MU3B and MU4, please say aye. Those opposed? Abstaining? Passes unanimously. Back to the R situation. One more speaker on each side for the R condition. Commissioner Hart, in favor?
I think based on the model of cooperative housing, we need to allow it in as many parts of the city as possible, period.
Okay. In opposition? Commissioner Shaw.
So right now, the R2 zones are 2-unit, and you can't put a co-op there. Based on co-ops are defined as 3 units or more. So we've got to resolve that.
Okay.
So right now, based on the code that's draft code, I oppose.
Okay.
What is that? Is that a code?
Is any comment related to the connection of this to how units are defined? Is he saying 3 units? We'd be creating a conflicting situation that we'd have to resolve elsewhere.
On the definition of cooperative housing, it's a residential project of 3 or more units in which undivided interest in land is coupled with the exclusive right of occupancy of any unit. So I don't want to continue, but it does speak to 3 or more units.
So is that R3 and up?
Yeah.
Okay, is this about what is a unit? Like, is a bedroom is a unit?
Or is that a dwelling?
Well,
Or is it a dwelling?
Can we divide the question again?
So I think there is a communal arrangement that they share a kitchen, they share living areas. Probably the unit in this context is probably only a bedroom.
Yeah, there's a different idea amongst, I think, commissioners up here as to what is the definition of a unit as related to this use.
It's not defined.
And there's 2 different ideas that are occurring at once. So
I'd like to make a motion to divide the
okay,
question.
you divide the question again.
So that
is there?
we-
Okay.
So that we would be taking up R3B, C, R4C, I'm sorry, R4A through C, RM1A, 1B.
So essentially everything but P through R2, right?
P, we wouldn't take up, P, R1, RR, and R2.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Trick question.
What's that?
Do we have a definition of unit for this?
No.
No, but we may find that we're going to be asking for one.
Yeah. Can we just postpone until we actually have a definition?
Yeah.
Can we vote on the definition itself? I've got a definition from the business organization, from the Texas Business Organizations Code. It says nothing about units. It says entity where residents are entitled to equal rights, equal voting rights, equal ownership shares.
Okay.
I don't know.
Commissioner Kazi, are you offering that as an amendment to this
Yeah.
conversation?
I'm offering that as a motion to include the definition as part of this motion.
Sorry, point of order, do we have to finish deciding if we're going to divide the question?
We should, yes, we should divide the question first. That was the motion that's on the table. And it was, you're separating out P, RR, and R2 as separate from everything else.
And R1.
Yes, and R1. So is there a second to that motion to divide? Seconded by Commissioner Seeger. All those in favor of dividing the question into those two portions, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Abstaining? All right, just make sure. So let's take up the more intense versions first, just like the last time. So the R3 and up.
Move the question.
What's that?
Can we just move the question? Is there any opposition?
That's what I'm going to. Is there any opposition to this? All right. All those in favor of those. What's that?
Position?
Opposition. Okay. Would you like to speak in opposition?
Yes, I would, because I think co-ops are great, like I said before, but these are people living in buildings just like everybody else. And if they're meeting the occupancy limit, then I don't really care how they're organized. And if they're violating an occupancy limit in one district, or zone, we call them zones, then they need to find a place where they can comply with the rules. And I don't see a reason to let a lot more people live in one place because they have some better organization. That's just not, it's just doesn't work with everything else we're doing. We don't usually single out people and say these are certain people and those are certain people. We're just dealing with numbers of people and numbers of cars and numbers of cats and numbers of trash cans. And so I don't really see the point. I think they can live in single-family places if they meet those occupancy limits, and I wouldn't knock on their door and ask if they were a co-op or not. It wouldn't matter to me. But if they're going to have greater occupancies, they need to fit into zones that allow that. So I just I don't have a problem with liking co-ops. I just don't know that they really create zones. I don't think we need to assign them to zones. I think they need to meet the regs that we have.
Chair?
In favor? Yes.
Motion to extend 15 minutes.
Seconded by Commissioner Anderson. All right. All those in favor of extending this to 12:15 to finish this item, please say aye. Those opposed? Abstaining?
Can I clarify about the use? Because it is allowed in those sections in the current draft as a conditional use permit or a minor use permit. So it's not like, so don't be thinking that we're not allowing it. It's more about the process.
Are you speaking in opposition right now?
No, I'm clarifying because I want to make sure that the commissioners aren't thinking that currently D3 says it's not even allowed in there. It is allowed in there as a conditional use or a minor use.
Thank you. Is there another speaker in opposition? Yes. Go ahead in favor. Go ahead. Commissioner Kenny.
I lived in an R3 co-op, French house. It was awesome. It provided me an affordable place and supportive place to stay when I was finishing up my college requirements in Austin. We need to decide if we're writing a zoning code or if we're just an HOA mandating, your paint color. I mean, you want to know why we have an affordability problem in Austin? This is why. You want to know why we're losing our weirdness? This is why. Would 1970s Austin that everyone harkens back to so much be banning co-ops? Is that what everybody came here for? I mean, this is just, it's an affordable way to live. It's as Austin as anything. R3 is there's lots of co-ops in R3 now. We've got to let it do it.
Okay. In opposition, 3 minutes. Commissioner Seeger.
My only opposition is the occupancy and the number of cars, et cetera. Other than that, I don't have a problem with co-ops in R3 up at all. I will support it for that.
One more each of in favor, in opposition. Commissioner Anderson. I know, but we've divided the question several times. Director Guernsey.
Commission, I think staff would like to ask you to table this and let us go back and look at the definition.
We have voted to table.
And
already.
then also look at occupancy. We think the definition probably could be relaxed from the number, well, refined from as it's written now, and that the occupancy, I think if we were to look at that, we could provide a recommendation that might clarify a number of individuals unrelated that might be residing in the different districts.
Chair?
Yes.
Am I here nervous to allow staff this opportunity because I heard after every single draft drop, the same folks come in here telling you guys that the definition was wrong and begging us all to fix it. And there were emails, endless pleas. They sent armies of people in here to try and get staff's attention, and now staff wants us to table so they can come back with a winning solution.
The vote to table already failed,
That's right.
Chair.
That's right.
Let's stick with this.
All right, so one more in favor and one more in opposition. Anyone else? Commissioner Shea.
So I think I'm going to be on opposition because it's already in there. We're not banning it. It's in the code to allow it as a conditional use permit and a minor use permit. And the operations and the definitions that we're giving of it is the ownership of it, but giving the opportunity to craft on how this thing would relate into the area, depending on if it's close to transit or far from transit, I think it's good. I think this way we're able to better find a way to fit the co-op into the area that it is going to be in. If it's closer to transit, then we can reduce the parking. It's further away, then we increase the parking. I mean, it gives that opportunity the way it's currently in the code. It does not ban it as what commissioners are trying to portray.
Okay. Commissioner Hart, is this in favor?
Yes.
In favor that was passed over, and then we're going to take up a vote on this item. Commissioner Hart.
Yeah, rather than allowing by CUP or MUP, this is a great tool for affordability that we need to allow by right, which is the purpose of this amendment.
Okay, with that, we are taking up the more intensive uses of the R3 and R4.
Is there any room for a question to staff?
I will allow one more question, and then we're voting.
Okay, I just want to understand a little bit more. In R3 right now, you can have 3 units. So if you had a co-op with 3 units, does a co-op get more units if it's in an R3?
More occupancy.
That's part of the reason why we wanted to try and get a little bit more time to talk about that. I would also offer up that item 57.17 is a revised definition of cooperative housing, if that is something that you all have put forward. It looks like Greg Anderson, Fayez, and Sisler proposed that. That is on page 61, the last page of the.
So you don't know if we would if co-ops would be allowed more units in R3 than 3? Do they get some sort of exemption for the zoning that they're in?
Right now, the general occupancy limit speaks that there's 6 unrelated individuals in a dwelling unit. And cooperatives, by definition, may only have a single unit. They only have a single kitchen, single dining area, multiple sleeping areas. You might come to this realization where you might say the occupancy might be limited to 6.
Okay.
And I don't think that was the intent of a cooperative at all, but there was intent to have more than that number. And that's partly the reason why we wanted to discuss it a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Okay, we have a motion to take up. We've had back and forth on this several times.
yeah, this is ridiculous. Can I ask a question?
I said we're going to have one more question on it. I don't need to hear this is ridiculous.
No, I have a question.
Can we vote to
staff.
take more time?
We can ask to take more time. That's the proper way to respond in this moment. I'd like more time. And can we have a motion to, 2 more minutes for discussion? We have rules we're trying to play, so thank you. Would somebody please ask for more time?
Can we get another 5 minutes?
Yes. We have a motion for 5 more minutes. Is there, all those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? All right, 4. So that is 9-4. There is more time. Commissioner McGraw, would you like to ask a question to staff?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to know what the difference is between a co-op that has more than 6 people and a group residential and a fraternity or sorority, other than their legal paperwork structure.
So group residential, by definition I have here, it says the use of a site for occupancy by a group, not a family, on a weekly or longer basis, and would be including but not limited to fraternity, sorority, dormitory houses, residence halls, and boarding houses.
How is a co-op different?
How would a co-op differ from that?
Well, besides getting from ownership, there's an ownership difference, usually between a fraternity, sorority, these other types of housing. It's more temporary, and they're not ownership. It doesn't involve the grounds in the building, unlike a group residential facility, which is typically in a more of a lease of tenant situation.
So is it a short-term rental?
No, I wouldn't say it's a short-term rental.
And does the state allow us to dictate how things are owned?
I think that goes back to the question that was raised about the definition itself that we asked to look at.
Okay. Other people want to use of this last 3 minutes on this. Commissioner Seeger.
I have a clarification, and this is kind of piggybacking the last question. It's really, it sounds like a factor of ownership and contracts between people living in this house. Do we have the right to monitor those? So if we don't, what prevents someone from buying a large home and having renters and calling it a co-op?
I don't know at this moment. I'd have to get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Shea.
So I want to clarify as far as for dwelling unit occupancy. So I just found it in 2340-740. So in a dwelling unit, if it is at least 51%, okay, if it's older, or in a nonprofit housekeeping unit, the no more than 10 unrelated adults may reside in a dwelling unit, and that's up from 6. So with a co-op, it goes 6 to 10. So that's just to kind of keep it in mind.
I thought it was over 60, you could have the 10.
Sorry, so it's
Over 60, you can have 10.
No, it says if, and then it also. Okay, well, you're right.
After you finish reading that, I'm going to turn to Commissioner Knuckles.
Yeah, I think this is not the type of issue we need to be taking up after midnight, after we've been here 8 hours and our brains are dull and our nerves are frayed, and I would be abstaining on this under any circumstances, but I'm just going to vote with my feet and go ahead and leave.
Okay. So we have a couple more minutes of the 5 that were asked for. Does anyone else want to use that time, or we want to take up Commissioner Hart?
I was just going to clarify, if you do look at that 57.17 item, I think to differentiate between a sorority or group housing versus cooperative housing, I think it specifically calls out a nonprofit or other entity in which residents are entitled equal voting rights and equal ownership shares if the cooperative sells shares. So I think those are two things that are very different from a sorority, fraternity, or dormitory.
Okay.
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Anderson.
It comes down to democratic tenant management, and that's the defining key here. And we're going to get creative in the way we solve affordability, or we're going to continue to turn our back on it. This is a way we can do one or the other.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to,
I have a quick question. I know that we already tabled it, but since we divided the question, are we allowed to take up tabling again? I just feel like this is getting so much more complicated than
we have a motion right now for R3, R4, RM, and
R3 and up.
basically, yeah, R3 and up, and then the other portion could be tabled. We could someone could make a motion on this one to table it, this portion, and it could fail. But I would rather, at this point, I'd like to take up this motion on this one.
I know that we want to just get this done, and I understand that the cooperative housing, I want to support this, but I really don't understand what exactly we're doing, because I don't understand what the definition is, I don't understand where the occupancy rate is, and I need staff to be able to tell me it. And if they need more time for that, then that doesn't seem, I don't know. It doesn't seem like we're asking too much. It's midnight. I can abstain, but I'd like to make a motion to table it, because I don't want to abstain. I want to be able to vote for this.
Okay. So are you making a motion to table this item?
I'm begging through my motion to table this item until we get more information.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Shea to table this. All those in favor of tabling this item to the first item in our next meeting, please say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This item fails. Okay. We'll be voting on this item, the first portion of it. And I'll say that from a definition standpoint and all that, if we find there's definition issues in the next meeting, as we go through it and we look at the R1 and R2, we can revisit this. Let staff come back with more information. But there's a vote right here on this part, based on what we know at this point. All those in favor of R3, R4, RM, and R3 and up being allowed, say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 7 on that. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Abstaining? 1, 2. So that is 7, 3, 2. Is that right? Yep. Okay.
Can we, since we're going to take up the next part, can I have staff also bring other information as well?
Yes.
So staff, because this is a CUP or a MUP, can you bring the standards by which you guys would be looking at it in order to approve or not, or make recommendations from, beyond just saying that it is a ownership based upon whatever nonprofit? Okay.
Yes.
Just a favor that you repeat what the motion was that was just voted on.
The motion that was voted on is R3 and up is permitted.
So this is R3 and up. Okay, thank you.
The original.
Not including the previous vote on MU3 and
right, MU3 and MU4.
Just to be clear, this was R3B, C, R4C, RR, R4A through C, RM1A through B.
This was not RR.
No. We mean R3B
Sorry.
zoning intensity and up.
Can we just list the zone districts, please? Again,
it's okay.
Just so we get it all exactly the way you wanted it.
This was for R3BC, R3B, R3C, R4C, R4A through C, RM1, A and B.
Thank you.
And MS1A?
That was a different motion.
That was the previous one. Okay,
Yes.
cool. All right.